Hi there, welcome to another presentation of the Sound and Emotions Conference. Today we have Jeffrey Thompson. Hi, Jeffrey. Oh, you're muted? I'm not hearing you. Are you there?
All right, I muted it so you
Okay,
could
cool.
hear.
Oh, cool. How are you doing?
I'm fine. My life is busting loose. Change, and more change.
Yeah, you're not bored
I
again?
am not bored. I'm sort of up to my eyeballs, but it's a happy problem.
Uh-huh,
You know, like, I can't blame anybody. I've done this all to myself, right?
Cool. Let me read your bio and then I'll see what you're up to. Okay, Dr. Thompson has been a pioneer in the field of therapeutic sound since the early 1980s. He's world renowned for his clinically proven mind-body harmonious brain and brainwave entrainment programs for sleep enhancement, physical, mental, and emotional healing, memory and learning, and other areas of personal growth through the scientific application of sound. He is recognized as a worldwide expert in the field of acoustic pacing frequencies incorporated into his composed musical soundtracks. A consummate musician and composer in his own right, he has established a method for using modulated sound pulses for changing states of consciousness for optimal mind-body healing and personal, frequently transformative growth. He's worked with Deepak Chopra, Bernie Siegel, Barbara Max Hubbard, Susan Jeffers. He's worked with NASA and worked with some recordings from Voyager. He's also worked at the Neuropsychiatric Center at UCLA for sleep. He's also worked with the Center for the Study of Complementary and Alternative Therapies at Duke University and University of Virginia. His audio programs have been used before and after surgery in oncology as well. He's also sells sound chairs and sound tables, and he's worked and helped with the alternative medicine department at Scripps Hospital in San Diego, and worked with many Fortune 500 and 100 companies and businesses as time permits. So, what's the latest? What you been up to?
Well, first of all, if you're not feeling good about yourself, just make a CV.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like you're talking about somebody else. I mean,
Uh-huh.
enough time goes under the bridge, you do tend to accomplish some things. It's life kind of throws these things at you, and everybody said, "Well, Dr. Thompson's accomplishments." Well, I don't know. I mean, I stepped into the right place at the right time. The doors opened. I followed through. It was like, thank the Lords that it turned out that way. But here we all are, right?
Right. Right.
You could say the same thing for yourself. You look back
Right.
on your life, you go, "Oh my God, what
Yeah.
happened?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because now where I've gotten is like, okay, like how many people did I help? Right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, well, we don't have many years left. Like, well, how many people can we maximize now? How can
yeah,
we really refine it so we're helping millions, right?
exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, and it seems like um, the course of time with what happened with the COVID pandemic and the closing down of the world, and it's sort of like the universe like shut everybody off in their houses to contemplate their navels. Everybody got big time out.
Mm-hmm.
And people got something from that, something
Uh-huh.
big. Um, some of it has to do with examining um, what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
And many people really got it very clearly that what they're doing with their life is killing them, or it's
Uh-huh.
certainly not what you would do if you had your own choice. Um, and on the other hand, sort of stopping the momentum of the insanity clears
Mm-hmm.
your mind and something new happens. I remember when that happened for me, I had to, reinvent my whole life. I do workshops and seminars. People fly in. We do this stuff, this thing, and all of a sudden, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that anymore. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to reinvent myself online, update my website. I started these live stream things that I'm doing. Things became very clear for me, and my direction just went wham. And then all these people started showing up, and all this stuff started happening. The doors all started flying off their hinges, and I don't even know where to begin right now. I've got this team of just absolutely awesome people who've shown up, scientists and engineers and business partners, and I don't know. It's
exact
amazing.
same here. Tell us what are some of the highlights of what you're, if you have anything you can share of what's coming up.
New products and development. We have a research development team, and some of this stuff is breaking out of sort of the traditional path that I've been treading all these years, which has to do with healing. And I'm a clinician. I have a clinical practice. I see patients. They fly in from all over the place, and they've got weirdo problems. I'm the witch doctor at the end of the trail, that kind of thing. On the other hand, I'm a musician, a composer. Right now I'm sitting in my recording studio. I use what I see with patients to show me what kind of sounds and musical arrangements can tailor an emotional response. What kind of brainwave entrainment frequencies lend themselves to emotional release, since we're talking about emotions here. But there's physical healing and emotional healing and mental healing, self-defeating belief systems, spiritual healing. All of those have categories, and all of those have certain types of brainwave entrainment frequencies that you can entrain brainwaves to push that.
Different ones for different emotions you use, or is it mostly all just getting you back to you?
Different emotions. Well, in my world, if I want to tailor different emotional states, then that's what I'm doing with the generic soundtracks on my website. I'm using brain entrainment and a number of other layers of things to push the subconscious mind response. That's sort of a visceral response that this is not in control of, rational thinking mind. And there you get into being a sort of a different level of musician, composer. So it's certainly easy to create, dark moods and surrealistic moods and relaxation moods and spiritual moods with music. Basically, essentially, you're just combining different frequencies in relation to each other that form a chord. It's fascinating that you can, you're manipulating frequencies in combination with each other, and the more you add, the more subtle that emotion, it's the language of emotions. On the other hand, you can bury theta brainwave entrainment frequencies there, because that's where emotions get healed at night during dreaming sleep.
So you feel that theta is the best for emotional healing for the most part?
And yes, I do. But it's not as simple as that. But I'm taking at least that part from sleep research. So we know that when you're first going to sleep, when you're awake and first dropping to sleep, you're in beta, rapid brain frequencies. And beta is from 13 hertz to somewhere around 38. And so let's say that you're at 20 hertz and you're slowing down, getting ready for bed, and it's 20 down to 10, 20 down to 15, down to 13. And now you've shut the light off, you're laying in bed, putting the sheets on, and now you're in alpha. You've crossed over this bridge into alpha brain activity. And that's still a mental state. So people in sleep research who are asked or woken up from alpha sleep report that they weren't asleep and they also weren't awake. You're in this zone, and the slower your brain waves go in alpha down towards the borderline of theta, you're more asleep than awake. You know, up at the top of alpha, you're more awake than asleep, and down at the bottom of alpha, you're more asleep than awake. But that's where that's a inner holographic mind function. Beta is I'm focused, and alpha is peripheral vision. So when I'm in that alpha state, it's more like mind pondering. It's not linear. It's anyway. That's where self-defeating belief systems reside. That the kind of opinion I have about myself, my worthiness, you know, how much health I get to have and how much money I get to have in life, and is set by my belief system about myself, you know. But then when you cross over into theta and you get into dreaming sleep, REM sleep, we know that a certain type of waveform shows up. It looks different. It's 13 hertz and down to about 7 or 8. And dreams are emotional. It's always an emotional component of a dream. You're being chased by the boogeyman, right? Or you're falling in love and you're having a wet dream. I mean, that's how real it can be. You don't know you're in a dream, but the things that are happening to you are emotional. So that's somewhere in there is where emotions are being worked on for the next day. So that's why I always equate theta with emotions. However, now we know that emotional states can be more subtle than that in gamma and in default mode network. So anyway, the once you get down through theta and you get into delta, which is the slowest, down at 4 hertz or 3.5 hertz, down to 0.5, very slow brain activity. That's when you're sort of completely out cold, most difficult to wake up, lowest heart rate, respiration, body temperature, cellular metabolic processes. That's obviously when the physical body is being healed.
So I think of it as being 100% connected to source, being regenerated.
Yeah.
It's like
So
God requires that we go back to delta or we die. Seems a little trolling to me. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Perhaps you should talk to management about that.
Right. If we didn't go back to source every night, we'd probably be a mess anyway.
So, I mean, also from sleep research, you can't survive without sleep. So sleep deprivation experiments, people who are denied delta sleep eventually die. Your physical body begins to fall apart. Respiration, heart rate, oxygen exchange all start to falter. People who are deprived from theta portion of sleep start to develop deep psychological problems. They start having emotional breakups, you know.
So I've got a question though. So if we're in theta, we're kind of in the emotional state somewhat, but don't you need another state to be able to look at that and make changes? Because the emotions aren't good at making it's like I somehow think the when you're in theta, you're not like in an active state to make changes in your emotions, right? It's almost like you need the alpha or the beta watching that theta to actually make the changes in your emotional being, or is it just simply getting stable, consistent vibrations in that emotional realm?
Well, it's more of there's other mechanisms than just that. For instance, the emotional. So let's say that when we get into theta, we've got a range from 7 or 8 hertz down to 3.5 or 4 hertz. That range of theta brain activity, which is getting slower and slower as we're getting deeper. I think there's a very specific brain frequency in there that opens the lock, that picks the lock of a program that begins to heal emotions. The rest is not a healing state. the whole range of theta is not an emotional healing zone. A specific frequency in there is.
And that's your frequency, kind of your metabolism and your brainwave rate?
I equate it from uh, the sound work that I'm doing. So because I'm using this, so just in a nutshell, I'm going to hook you up to this special heart rate variability program, and I can now see the sympathetic parasympathetic on my computer screen. And from a physiological standpoint, you should be living in a place of zero stress, where sympathetic parasympathetic are not on, using your energy for some purpose. So sympathetic is on, it's using all your energy to save your life and pumps everything in your muscles. And if it's parasympathetic that's on, it's pulling all the energy out for digestion and toxic elimination and processes like that. And when those are over, then both of those are zeroed out. And all that energy that they would be using is now drained back into my reservoir to be used for general maintenance.
Which could be
maintenance, emotional maintenance, and
emotional
mental
maintenance, yeah, working out your
physical
issues.
maintenance, and all that, and synchronizing up all my organs and glands, and getting the most work with the least amount of energy expended, rebuilding tissues. All of that kind of stuff is what's a constant thing going on every minute. Every time I move my shoulder, the joint in there is killing cells at the joint surface from friction. But new cells are being reborn to replace them because I'm working on this list. So no damage is done, right? It zeroes out. The ones that are destroyed are being replaced by new ones because I've got this maintenance list going. And I don't need pain and I don't need inflammation. So I've got endorphins floating around from neurons in my brainstem to suppress the pain. And I've got corticosteroid hormones from my adrenal glands floating around to suppress unneeded inflammation responses. That's my normal state.
Would you say that state is what we would call peace, or is it?
Yes. It's zero stress in the autonomic nervous system. Master control is zero stress, zero out.
Cool.
That means I'm in my 100% safe place. I feel safe, zero stress. And then if I feel threatened, the sympathetic turns on, the energy drains out and goes, and then when that's over, it comes back and the energy comes back and I start working on my list. So when I hook patients up in my clinical practice to this HRV, and I see that when you lay down on your back, the gravity is no longer pulling the blood out of your head, and that causes a little bit of a sympathetic response to arise to neutralize that. And so when you lay down, I should see sympathetic on, and I should see it collapse down to zero in 3 minutes. That's called the Ragland test, classic clinical test for adrenal insufficiency, or where your stress handling system is at. When I see people who, after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, have the sympathetic is still on and it's not collapsing, that's clinical evidence of a runaway fight or flight response that always has my reservoir empty, and I can never achieve my zero stress state. So now I'm burning up all my resources, because when I'm not in this state, I'm not working on my maintenance list and rebuilding tissues or balancing all my systems properly. And I believe that that is the ultimate cause of disease, is not able to, the master control system is awry. There's something wrong with it.
And all the energy is being used up for the stress. Right.
Yeah, and so that means that my adrenals,
in case there's a lion showing up.
Yeah, so my adrenals are running all the time. My blood pressure is high. My blood sugar is high. Two biggest prescriptions in modern medicine. And the corticosteroid hormones begin to drop over time because the adrenals start to fatigue out. That means I start getting inflammations everywhere. But anyway, so now I can find a sound frequency that's very precise, accurate to a couple of decimal points, that will cause this to push in the clutch. I can hit the reset button. This goes back. Now I've got a frequency, and the frequency is precise. And according to the law of acoustic physics, any octave of the correct frequency will make the wine glass vibrate. Mm-hmm. Right? I ping the wine glass, sing that note, sing any octave of that note, any harmonic of that note, the wine glass vibrates. So it's similar. Once I find a frequency, every octave of that frequency is going to work. So I'll calculate all those octaves.
Even rhythms that go below our hearing range, right?
Right. So once I'm below 20 hertz, this mechanism of my ear is not working anymore, but this mechanism is vibration sense network.
Becomes a rhythm.
Sensitive 500 hertz down to 0.3 hertz. So I'm activating that system. That's the purpose for designing and creating a sound table or a sound chair or whatever. It's a delivery system for the low frequency vibrations to activate the system. But when I calculate those octaves, when I go below 20 hertz, I'm also identifying a series of brainwave frequencies that are precise octaves. And that's beta, alpha, theta, delta, epsilon, all the rest. And now those are very precise brain frequencies. Now, if we use the technology of binaural beats, instead of just general relaxation or general meditation, it all becomes very specific now to me, tuned specifically to my nervous system. So if I entrain you to this very specific octave in theta, I just located the exact brain frequency in the theta dreaming portion of sleep that activates this balancing in the nervous system, which we already know is associated with healing. That means that there's a very specific frequency in theta that picks the lock of a neural program and makes it run for healing my emotions. And it's in the whole scope of all the brain frequencies in theta that I will move through in sleep. But as my brainwaves slow down, they hit this frequency and bang, it unlocks this program and emotional healing starts. Now we're able to hone our technique down for a emotional healing session. And essentially what we're doing is there's a place in the brain where all this happens, right? The amygdala and the hippocampus. And that's a sort of a crescent that wraps right around the hypothalamus. And inside the hypothalamus is the origin of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Master control system wrapped around with the emotional control system with hardwired nerve going straight into the autonomic nervous system organelles. So that's really the location in the center of the brain where the emotions are hardwired into the control system that tells all organs and glands in the system what to do. That means that is really the physical location of where my emotions have direct access to organ and gland function throughout my whole body. And so now we can see that's how emotions can cause physical disease.
So have you looked at actually playing very specific sound or electromagnetic frequencies into the hypothalamus?
Yes, I have done that.
How'd it work?
I think that that's what this frequency with HRV is doing.
It's all you're already doing it by doing the binaural beats.
No, this is before binaural beats. So when you're laying on this sound table, and I see the sympathetic is stuck on, when you have a fight or flight response and the sympathetic turns on, that's not actually what's happening. The parasympathetic nervous system controls the system. Eventually, there's a little organelle inside the hypothalamus called the anterior hypothalamic nuclei. That's the origin of the vagus nerve. It's the origin of the parasympathetic nervous system. There's another one next to it called the posterior hypothalamic nuclei. That's the origin organelle of the sympathetic nervous system.
Wow.
Both of those are inside the hypothalamus. So it's like a seesaw. When one is on, the other one's off. So when I have a fight or flight response, what's actually happening is the parasympathetic nervous system is turning itself off, and the sympathetic turns on by default. So the so if I've got a sound frequency that is affecting the sympathetic stuck on, I know that I can't control the sympathetic directly. I can only control it by what happens with the parasympathetic. So from a physiological standpoint, the sound waves through the sound table that are causing this balance in the autonomic nervous system that I'm seeing on my screen has to be affecting the parasympathetic nervous system, and most likely it's the organelle in the hypothalamus that's being resonated like a wine glass.
So you're doing it kind of by default by using it on the body, and it just goes up into the brain to that spot and balances it out.
The vibration frequencies come through the table are resonating that structure directly through sympathetic
and your whole nervous system goes straight to that.
The whole nervous system is controlled by that. So if I can control the organelle that controls the parasympathetic, I really have control of the entire system.
Well, what about controlling it directly instead of doing it on the body and having it, seep back up into the organelle? I mean, what about actually putting frequencies right? I mean, if those two controls are right there, let's, find your. I assume it's going to be different from person to person, so it's not going to be
unique.
one.
It's unique.
Yeah, so you find those very specific frequencies, and is it as simple as just getting a balance of those two little control centers in the hypothalamus? I mean, that's
balancing the sympathetic parasympathetic.
That's seems like it almost seems too simple to.
Yep.
I mean, let's
simple.
Just go in there and go.
Because everybody wants to play doctor, and everybody wants to fool around with all the organs and do special energy work and balancing this and that.
So I did have. I mean, and that's thought of as the part of the third eye as well, right? Right.
What's
and
that?
The hypothalamus and pituitary is what most people think of as the third eye.
Pituitary hangs down below. The third, and part of the reason why it's usually considered the third eye is because its location is right there. The pituitary's location is straight in there, and the hypothalamus is just above that. Hangs down.
So I was, getting excited a couple of years ago about actually using very specific frequencies there, and then this actual intuitive said, well, you got to be careful because some people aren't ready to have their third eye open, right?
Absolutely.
And I actually had a couple of years ago, I had this guy that was really powerful, but he was kind of a loose cannon. And he did a sound healing on me, and I was thrown off for 2 weeks. And then one of my instructors, who's quite psychic, said, he opened your third eye when you weren't ready. I think I'm ready now, but yeah, you have to be a little careful. But balancing is different. It's not exactly the same as opening the third eye. If you
that's completely different. Very different.
Cool.
So now you're going to, with the third eye, you've got a chakra is a subtle energy vortex system that connects the physical, metaphysical systems together. Because each one of the chakras has got physical counterparts. It's a network. So that means that my heart chakra has an acupuncture meridian. It has a spinal level. The innervation is through the sympathetic chain with something called a postganglionic neuron. There's a whole network where the brain can control the chakras through a spinal level, out through the sympathetic chain, out from that to a postganglionic neuron, out from that to the gland that is associated with that chakra. This network physically exists associated with this, subtle energy sort of vortex. But there's a reason why the nested series of vortexes of the seven major chakras are aligned the way they are. They're like a step up transformer. It's like the base chakra is like diesel fuel, and the crown chakra is 5-star jet fuel. And you take a tab of acid, it's compressed 5-star jet fuel. So you take it, that machinery runs, you have these fantastic experiences, but afterwards you land back in your body the same stupid idiot you were before, right?
Right.
That's some fancy memories, but
with that part of the body that was triggered by the acid actually a little worn out at that point too.
and so and when it goes awry, when a person's not ready for their crown chakra to be opened up because they didn't do the work,
Mm-hmm.
it's like trying to lift a 500-pound weight when you've never been to a gym.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not ready for that. You got all kinds of emotional baggage and physical imbalances and mental belief systems that you're carrying along into a subtle realm where they don't belong. You have to do the work.
Yeah, I think I've come to, because I know a few people that have actually had Kundalini experiences and been paralyzed for like a month, right? And I think the number one thing my guess is that when your heart's not open, there's a blockage as the energy moves up towards the crown, and that blockage causes a problem. So
Causes friction. You
mm-hmm,
burn
mm-hmm,
etheric membranes. You screw
mm-hmm,
the system up. I mean, in the past, in the ancient past, in our indigenous past, this was all of that. All the stuff we're talking about here was controlled and contained and protected by the elders, by the sacred, by the shamans, by the. This was never shared with the general public. You had to go through years of initiation to learn how to do all this stuff properly.
mm-hmm,
Now, in the 20th and 21st century, the cat's out of the box and
mm-hmm,
it's a free for all. And now we've got all kinds of people who don't have any idea what they're doing, screwing around,
mm-hmm.
teaching Kundalini yoga classes when they've got no idea what they're doing. And I mean, I always see people. Well, of course, I'm in California. It's all chiefs and no braves here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says, I don't want to go through the stuff, the whole meditation stuff. I don't need to do that. I want to go straight to the crown chakra and open that. I'm going to do Kriya yoga. Go straight to that because I'm evolved and I remember my last lifetimes. In some cases, that's delusion or wishful thinking. And you don't find out until you do screw around with it and find out you just blew something open and now you've got entities and weird stuff and you're not normal and nobody can fix you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's we all have to be careful. And it seems to me that the sort of holistic spiritual community is maybe more gullible than average regular people.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's the same level of gullibility. There's schlockermakers out there. There's, spiritual entrepreneurs trying to make a buck. We need to retain our critical faculties.
It's interesting. I've thought about this a good amount, and there's a certain component where you just, when I do a treatment, I will bring in source energy, instead of healing somebody, I say, okay, source. I just assume source is going to do its work. I create the atmosphere for that healing, and I see source as an intelligent being that knows us pretty well that will do what's appropriate, right? I think it's when people actually start doing their own work and not really being sensitive to what is appropriate at the time. So, I mean, even one thing that I find that helps, that I teach intensely, is ask that it's only for the highest good of each person.
Yep. And so when you start to drift into seeing great healings happen, that's another test of spirit. The test is to never allow yourself to believe that this is you, that you're the healer.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that happens, you're lost, because ego now is using your spirituality as just another tool to boost ego. Trungpa Rinpoche wrote that book, Spiritual Materialism. The danger is for my ego to take my spiritual work that has borne fruit and start to believe that I'm better than you are because I'm more spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And start looking down on people that aren't as spiritual as me or whatever. It's always a test.
Yeah.
Eventually, when it gets really big, the more that you can toe the line of the sort of the Buddha mind path, that it's not you, that the energies come through, you become this channel for that. And that person will get what is appropriate for them at this time and no more than that. Then more and more people get more deeply healed. The word spreads around. Pretty soon you're starting to get famous. Here's the next test.
Uh-huh.
It gets more and more difficult for your ego to resist the fame and the fortune and the offers of sex.
I'm
and
bad.
That's where
I'm bad. We bad. Yeah. Alice Bailey calls it glamour. Right.
Yeah, spiritual glamour. Yeah. Oh,
Uh-huh.
it's
Uh-huh.
it's
It was interesting. About 3 years ago, one of my online students said, the Hathors are talking to me, these aliens, and they said that I'm supposed to come in and get a treatment for 3 days with you, and it will completely transform you and your center, and I will be healed as well, and I'll pay you. And I'm like, okay, fine,
yeah.
come on in. So I'm doing a treatment on her, and for the first time, instead of me doing sound healing on somebody, I realized that I should just create an atmosphere and make sound and allow the Hathor she's talking to, right, to go for it. And it was completely different because now I didn't have to put any energy out. It was zero effort from me. It was just simply an atmosphere. And it was the best healing ever. And it did transform the way I did treatments.
Yeah. So there's because I'm a sort of a Steppenwolf kind of. On this shoulder, I've got this hard-nosed scientist, this bald-headed businessman with a big cigar. He doesn't believe any of this stuff. He thinks it's all baloney. So somebody comes today talking to the Hathors, and it's going to change everybody's lives.
Right.
And this guy starts puffing in a cigar, going, "Oh, come on, give me a break." But I'll take the money.
Yeah. And the other side's doing ayahuasca.
The other side has taken acid and saw God, knows all of this is real, and has no question about it. It has been there, done that. And so these two both look at that statement, and this part wins and says, open skepticism. That's fine. If this turns out to be baloney, then this guy wins. If it turns out not to be so, then something new happens. And when that something new does happen, this guy over here with the cigar is like, God, just can't believe it. I mean, and this guy's over here, see, I told you so,
Yeah.
Another confirmation that I should always give the benefit of the doubt, and perhaps you'll be happily surprised. But if there's anything I've learned in all the years that gave me all this gray hair, is that whatever I think is going on, I'm probably wrong.
Right. Well, so I got an email from a person this morning, and they said, "What's the best frequency to use?" And
That's it. Period.
That was it. That's all they said. What's the best frequency to use on somebody or around somebody is what they said. And I immediately said, yours or theirs, their frequency, right? Because, it's really what you're doing, I feel, is the safest. I mean, of all we hand out 10,000 frequencies for a list of 10,000 frequencies for everything you could imagine. But nobody agrees on anything, right? Whereas your frequency of your metabolism, of your brain waves, of your body, I mean, that's really the very best. I mean, there's that, and then there's a Schumann resonance, which is the main frequency we're tuned to. as well as, heart math, says that zero point 0.1 cycles per second is the number one frequency in that the atmosphere is vibrating at, based on all of the cosmic rays coming in. And so,
Even the Schumann resonant fluctuates.
yeah, not
I mean,
much
that's
though, not much.
it's solar wind fluctuations will make it shift a little
Hmm.
bit. It'll
Uh-huh.
it'll fluctuate around. It won't always be 7.83.
Hmm.
It may dip a bit down and go up a little bit. Um, I haven't seen any scientific journal evidence of people saying the Schumann resonance is now at 11 hertz
Yeah, no,
and
Rowan
is
McCready.
re-evolving or something, and going,
Yeah,
where did they get that from? I
yeah,
mean,
no, Rowan, actually, I just had an interview with him in the last conference. He said, absolutely, it's not gone up. They're looking at harmonics, and also one person was actually looking at amplitude and confusing amplitude with actual frequency. He says it has absolutely not gone up.
once more, it's the gullibility. Somebody says something on Facebook and everybody jumps on it and says that's true without even thinking twice or even trying to look it up
I
or
I
find
had
out.
I had a guy just a day before yesterday. He said, "I've created a flute to 528 hertz, and it's creating love everywhere, and it's proven." And it's like we did research that it proves that it's incredible. And I'm like,
And
"Did
then,
you test the other 20,000 hertz?"
yeah, right. I
Right.
well, the cigar starts puffing when people say I've got the frequency of love. I'm going, really? How'd you do that? I'd love to see the research of how you figured out what love is in the first place,
Right,
and
right,
that
right.
it's just one frequency and it's not this infinite. Like, I mean, I
Okay,
don't know.
so we did a research project that we put on Facebook and had 200 people choose between 5 meditations to get in the zone of love, and then we gave them a tone generator and
Uh
had
huh.
them find the frequency of what matched it. And it was all over the place. I mean, some people did like 30 hertz, some did like 15,000 hertz. I'm like, well, that's love, right? But there was a little bell curve right around 200 or in 250.
Interesting. Ah,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
it was little
But
though.
this is um, important to bring to ground the sort of spiritual hoopla that's arisen uh, that doesn't question. Most of the people that talk about the Schumann resonance don't even know what that is.
Right, it's the
They
Earth's
just know it's
frequency.
they just know it's 7.83 and has something to do with the Earth. Know it's some kind of cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, and electromagnetic frequencies have a certain speed and a certain distance. That's 7.83. Um, the If we're going to have a hope of changing healing uh, to the standard it's always been throughout history, and not the latest comely, Johnny come latelys who, with their knives and their scalpels and their sticking with needles and stuff,
Mhm.
then we have to uh, develop our critical mind to bring it to a scientific endeavor. If I can examine your brainwaves, and I do 1,000 people uh, who are musicians, and have you compose a new piece of music, and I have 1,000 people doing that, and I measure your brainwaves, and now on a bell curve, I can examine and say, whoa, theta seems to be the zone where creativity takes place. And any individual shows up, and I measure just one individual and not this big group, all bell curves disappear, because bell curves only apply to large groups of people on an average. So when you got an individual, you can sort of be assured that 80% of the people who are musicians, when they're creating a new piece of music, go into a theta state. But this one person, you don't know what theta frequency works exactly for them.
Mhm.
And that person may be one of the 20% out on the edges where their theta brain range is not the theta brain range in the textbooks, which are also derived by bell curve studies of large population groups, right? So That's why different textbooks have different ranges of, say, theta. This one will say that it's 7 hertz to 3.5. This guy will say it's 8 hertz to 4. It's and then we all try to solidify that and say, oh, this is what it is, not realizing it's never that. It's always some funky thing.
People are different.
But until we can bring it to bear to a way that can give it validity that we know, it helps in two different ways. Number one, it pushes it into the mainstream because it's not just somebody's nice idea that may or may not be 100% true. On the other hand, it helps to hone your technique. Because if you've got a technique, say as a clinician, you're using a bunch of different therapies and people are getting well, that's all you care about. That's your job, get them well. But if you want to find out as a scientist, you test them all to find out which ones are doing more work than others and which ones are actually fluff that aren't doing anything at all, but it makes it look better because you're trying to sell a product, which is your treatment to help people.
Right.
So
once we get, say, someone comes in with a wide range of emotional issues, or you get different people with different emotions. First of all, are there specific emotional issues like anxiety or depression or PTSD or grief or any specific issues that getting them in the balance of parasympathetic and sympathetic are especially good for, and some that it's not quite so, it's not as good, or is it pretty even for all emotional issues?
Well, from my standpoint, a prerequisite for healing in the physical body is homeostasis.
Peace is the deal.
You can't heal. Healing is part of this process of using the energy from the reservoir on my maintenance list and healing list, untangling the problems. If that's suspended when I'm running a fight or flight response because all the energy is pulled. When that's all over, I come back. If I eat food, then parasympathetic turns on and uses that energy. And when that's done, it's back and I resume my list. So if I can't achieve homeostasis, I can't heal. If I can't achieve homeostasis, I can't be creative. In other words, the appreciation of beauty, the appreciation of nature, the appreciation of things like that has a prerequisite of this zero safe place.
And it's a
I had
portal
an
to.
experience of that. I went out to Hawaii years ago on Christmas Day when I was in my 20s to a way out on the end of this 10-mile dirt road to the edge of the mountains to a true Hawaiian wilderness zone on the Big Island, and hiked out there. When I was coming back at the end of the day after meditating all day out there and doing stuff, I had to cross through this copse of forest to get to the other clearing where the trail was. And you can only imagine how beatific all of this is out there in Hawaii. I mean, but then I get lost. I got lost in those woods. And I knew that they would probably take them 2-3 months to find my body, if ever. And I freaked out. And all of a sudden, the beauty of nature was absolutely gone. Absolutely gone. And that was the lesson for me, that survival needs have to be met before the flowering of civilization begins. Art and music and dance and creativity and meditation and higher spiritual pursuits are not possible when my survival needs are not met. And healing is dependent on certain physical things to be in place first.
Okay, so once you get to this homeostasis and your system can start healing, any thoughts as to what to do to, with sound perhaps, to actually replace these patterns that where we're recreating these emotions? Because we can get to a place of healing and bliss and total and have healing, and then the next day we're like, F you, and it's like your whole system goes haywire. and and you keep repeating the pattern, you keep creating it. Any thoughts as to, because it sounds like it's the best place to get if once you go into some type of therapy, right? To be at when you
Yeah.
start your therapy.
So sort of how what I've come to over the years with patients is the physical body is the foundation. The the master control system that tells all systems in my body what to do is a physical system, and the if I have emotional traumas that would require me to say go do emotional work or go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever to deal with these emotional traumas that I've been carrying around and try to release them, they the body is going to be digging in its heels and fighting against you, because the reason I have the emotional trauma still stuck there, let's put it back this way, is in the 100% normal person, the hypothetical 100% normal person, right, where everything is perfect and the way it's supposed to be, this is balanced and it does its job. And if I feel threatened, it does this thing. It's a straw fire that burns out in a few minutes and it comes back and I do my thing. I digest my food, this parasympathetic turns on, it comes back, I'm doing my thing again. If I have a physical injury, the mechanisms of my body heals that. I get a cut, I bleed, the bleeding stops, it heals over the scar, some magic thing happens, the body's doing that. If I have, and so when I eat my food, I should be detoxifying the toxins that arise from that digestive process and just clearing them out. They should not be accumulating in my cell tissues, my fat tissues. They should not be accumulating there. If they are, why? Why is that? Because master control is not balanced. And therefore, when the body says, I have these toxins I want to release, the master control says, well, before I can allow that, I have to do a self-diagnosis to see if I've got enough stress handling extra to handle the stress of releasing these toxins. And the answer is no. I've been running a stress response for 10 years and my adrenals are blown and I'm topped up. I don't have any extra. I can't handle any more stress. So that would do self-harm. So I'm going to store that toxins for now. Same thing with the emotional traumas. Hey, I'd like to release these emotional traumas I've been carrying around since I'm 6. And the body says, no can do. I'm out of balance up here. I can't handle any more stress. So you're going to have to hold that in the subconscious mind now. But in the normal course of things, in our indigenous ancestors, where things were aligned properly, none of that stuff happened. I didn't accumulate emotional traumas in my subconscious mind. I cleared them in the natural order of things because I'm healthy. And self-defeating belief systems had a mechanism for being cleared after they happened. Somebody was always there in the community whose job it is that if I had a huge trauma, then I got worked on right away. All of that got cleared. My body had mechanisms from its balanced state to handle that. But that not being the case in the 21st century, where we've got, your personal story. Basically, you're born, basically you're in the womb and it's happy time. Then you're born and, you start getting beat up by life. And we've all have traumas from that. But then there's the things that happen to us traumatically. And then there's the 21st century superimposed on top of all of that, which is an unimaginable marathon of stresses that for a body that was designed for a sprint. So electromagnetic fields coming out of your walls, 5,000 radio channels, military frequencies, microwaves, cell towers, 5G, smart meters, junk in your food, 7 o'clock news, world burning, climate change. I mean, good God, alarm clocks in the morning.
COVID.
This system wasn't designed for that. It's an impossible situation. That's why I believe that so many people have this runaway fight or flight response as a survival mechanism to figure out how to survive in a marathon of stresses with a body that was designed for a sprint for 30,000 years ago. You know, I chase some little creature for breakfast. That's my work day.
So it seems like at a certain point, you know, you're going to get over time, your body will get balanced by doing these techniques and running those frequencies, getting on the sound table. I get on every day, right? And at a certain point, you know, it's mostly going to balance out itself, even emotionally, but there's still these patterns that are still going on. So I'm looking at like different sound techniques with the voice to release stuck emotions that we do in our classes. I mean, there's a full range of things you could do. It could be psychotherapists that are actually working with sound. So you actually, you
Now
know,
we're getting somewhere.
yeah.
That's where this starts to shine.
Mm-hmm.
These various techniques align and combine together, which maximizes the efficiency of other techniques that are married to that.
What I'm
And that's
seeing is a new approved system for psychotherapists to work with sound, right?
I I'm you're speaking to the choir. I mean, when I talk to psychotherapists, um, you know, I'm my opinion is that um, you can't have a complete emotional healing until you can handle the system that handles the stress
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that makes it okay to release that.
Right. Right.
Right. So the
That's
body's
really
going.
helpful. That's really helpful because a lot of people think, "Oh, I just did a sound healing. I've even been going for a month and it's not working. It's like it's not completely turned around." Well, goodness
Yeah.
gracious, it's going to take a little time. If you've been running that anxiety for 10 years or
Yeah.
even 30 years, right? It's going to take a little while to get to the homeostasis, you know, where your body. And it seems like the number one thing is to do it multiple times through the day. A lot of people, you know, even with sleep, people go to get ready for bed and they think, okay, I'm going to use some sound or something right before I go to sleep. Well, you should have been using it the whole day. So your system is more in coherence.
Yeah. I agree. So on the other hand, you might have a very talented practitioner for emotional release work who, even though the body doesn't feel safe to release it, that's why it's holding it, because the stress handling system is awry and screwed up. So it doesn't want any part of the stress of trying to release something. But I'm so talented, I can pull it out anyway. Then that means that I just traumatized you with a new trauma.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
A healing crisis that could
You
actually
just,
even get you really sick.
yeah, you just got re-traumatized.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if I'm trying to do a detox, a physical detox on you when your body's not ready for that, then we have not a detox response, we have a toxic response. Your
Hmm.
body wasn't able to integrate the release of those toxins and push them out. That's why the body was resisting you.
And then you
Um,
go into that stress sympathetic again because your body's freaking out.
you get sick. Yeah. So, and many times I see with emotional traumas, the none of this stuff exists in a vacuum. You can't have an emotional trauma without a physical counterpart and a self-defeating belief system sort of counterpart and a spiritual counterpart, because all of those are just semantic words that people made up and applied them to something that never had divisions in the first place. Nature doesn't grow a physical body and emotional body, and it grows one thing, and all these things are networked together. So it means that there's no possibility of a person coming in with low back pain who doesn't have an emotional low back pain and a self-defeating belief system low back pain. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of what's the percentage mix.
Hmm.
I have 50 people show up with exactly the same L5 back pain.
Mm.
This person is 90% physical. This person's 75% physical. This person's 30% physical, 70% emotional. You know what I mean? It's if you don't turn over every rock and balance it all, you're not holistic. You haven't done the holistic duty. You
Yeah.
haven't cleared it all out. It's not actually necessary, in my opinion, to clear it all out, every single piece, because
Hmm.
what I've seen is is necessary to clear enough of the elements involved to create a balancing of 51% of the elements that are imbalanced. If I can get to 51%, the seesaw tips towards healing, and everything will inevitably always slide towards healing. If I can't get 51% of the things wrong with you balanced, the seesaw will always slide you back.
Right, right.
So it's not necessary to do all of them.
Yeah.
It
Well,
would be nice.
society is still in training us into this craziness as well. So it's going to be really hard to get all of them anyway, because then you go talk to your friend and they're like going, you're just totally syncing with people around you and the whole energy field on the planet, which, we're kind of stuck in.
Which is the bigger issue here, because we're all in this together, and we all represent a an organism as a species. And the more you study quantum physics, the more you realize that we're all, connected together in a collective unconscious mind. That even the concept of you over there and me over here is wrong.
Hmm.
That or the concept of me, that this is my body and it sort of ends here. That's wrong. Cleve Baxter proved that wrong with the secret life of plants, and then the secret life of your cells, where I can take one of your cells from your cheek and put it in a beaker and hook you up to a lie detector machine in another room and hurt the cell with electrical field, and you'll have a stress response 350 feet away.
Mm.
That proves that your body doesn't start someplace and doesn't end anywhere. It's an illusion. What this is just a localized accumulation of standing waves, but those standing waves go forever. It's like, anyway. So
Well,
when
no,
we talk about,
this is important because, I think a lot of people don't really have a real experience of the fact that we are all one. And so I started thinking about it, and because some people talk about see the God in that person, see their spirit, right? And I was trying to think of a way to teach it and talk about it as to how to see people and see that light in them that's the same as yours. And the most basic I came up with is just they're doing the best they can based on their circumstances and what they know. And
that's
that's one
always,
thing. Any
yeah,
thoughts on this? Because it's really that belief system that we're separate is really kind of one of the biggest problems. As soon as we go past that and see we're all one, then we're not going to go hurt ourselves unless we're bored.
or sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, so there's certain cool physical experiments you can do. I mean, the whole concept of coupled oscillators, the propensity of everything in the universe to want to dance together to save energy. So that's where the pendulum clocks will swing together on the same wall, because the vibrations are using the wall as a sounding board to link them together, and they want to swing together. It's why your heart cells beat together when they're touching. It's why um, women who dorm together tend to have their periods at the same time. They're timing their body clocks to each other. It's why if you and I were physically present with each other and we held hands, our nervous systems are now connected by a modem of electromagnetic conductivity between our two bodies. And our heart rate, respiration, pulse, and brain waves will begin to synchronize up together just by doing that simple thing. So if we have a group meditation of people sitting in a circle and holding hands and chanting Om,
Or even on Zoom somewhat.
that's where I'm going with this. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the physical contact accentuates it because we have electromagnetic conductivity that pushes the envelope of it. But if we had all the people that are watching this right now, all of us, to take a big breath and sing Om and synchronize our breathing as we then we would be synchronizing our respiration, which directly affects heart rate variability and directly causes this to start happening, because respiration and heart rate are hardwired together. So that partly the wisdom of the past of sitting in a circle and om chanting together forces a communal respiration pattern to emerge, which accentuates the coupled oscillator effect of us all synchronizing up together. You can do that with HRV. So when it's the foundation of couples work. So if I'm hooking up these heart rate variability sensors on your wrists, two of them go on one wrist, one of them goes on the other wrist, and they have to communicate through your heart. It's ECG is the gold standard in medicine. The other one is called PPG. It's pulse wave. It's a little clip on your finger. That's not giving enough accurate information to generate the real sympathetic, parasympathetic, detailed picture you need on your screen. It's giving some information. But anyway, the two leads have to communicate through the heart electrical system to generate what I see on the screen, sympathetic, parasympathetic. With a couple, if you have two people facing each other and holding hands, now you've created this couple oscillator pair, and things will start to synchronize. If I have you let go of one hand and I splice the HRV in there with leads on his wrist and leads on her wrist, now we've got three people holding hands, you and me and the little computer. And that means that this lead on this wrist has to go through two bodies and two nervous systems to complete the circuit with the other wrist. So really the HRV is reading the entity of the relationship. It's a consensus of two nervous systems. So when I see the sympathetic on my screen, that's the barrier between you and me, being 100% open and free with each other. It's the barrier that has arisen in the relationship of a couple. And I'm going to do the sound sweep like I normally do if this was just a single person and collapse that to zero. I just scientifically, using sound, collapse the barrier between the two of you. And now you arrive back at your essential state, which is the part of you that is the lovable part, the part that you reveal to another person when you fall in love. Two people drop their barriers, the essence of them meet, fall in love, and then when the honeymoon is over, so to speak, the personalities close back down again, and maybe don't even like that person. Get into arguments, you have all these problems. If you don't have some mechanism of solving that, of every single day before you go to bed, have some mechanism to reestablish the essential link that you fell in love with, it will eventually fall apart. It has to. It's math. It'll fall apart. So then if you extrapolate that to one step more, you could do that with a family. The mother, father, all the children holding hands. Now you've got the entity of that group that only arises when that group is together. And then you can extrapolate it further. That's what I was doing with Mattel and Cisco and Nike and Google and all these people hiring me to boost creativity and problem solving, out of the box lateral thinking. Well, we already know that Theta is where creativity takes place. So in training to Theta is going to be like easy. We know where problem solving happens and new original ideas come from synchronicity of the hemispheres. So if we use headphones and binaural beats in Theta with a group, we've accomplished both tasks at the same time. It's like falling off a log. It's simple. Now what's going to happen is, so with Mattel, what I did was they were hiring me to boost creativity, problem solving, and new original ideas in a team building group where they've got 20 people who are the top designers from Mattel. And so I have them all sit in a circle, take their shoes and socks off, sit in a circle cross-legged, scoot in until everybody's knees are touching. And once you reach that point, the bottoms of your feet are all touching. Mingling of the souls. right? So now you've got physical connection, and you're already starting this coupled oscillator network rolling. Then if I have everybody cross their arms the same way their legs are crossed and hold hands, I've got a double braided electromagnetic field connection that causes everybody to start synchronizing up through the coupled oscillator effect. Now I'm going to take two people and break them apart and splice in my leads for the HRV. And when the screen pops up, I see this big sympathetic stress response, which is the barrier of all these strangers who essentially biologically can't allow themselves to trust each other
Mm-hmm.
because the animal mind is in there going, are these people, is this the murderer in disguise? I mean, so now I'm going to do the sound sweep like I usually do with a single person. I'm going to collapse that down to 0. I just scientifically collapse the barriers of 20 people so they can play together.
Wow. So, okay, so we're about out of time, but I've got a interesting question that you probably thought about that maybe you know, maybe don't. So say you hook up, 10,000 or a million people to these devices, and you do the thing where you collapse it and you see
Yeah.
where it's basically the average of all their metabolisms in a way, right? Hmm. So what, what note do you think that will be?
But
If
that's where I
we,
was, essentially, that's where I was going. The next step of this is you do this with large groups of people
uh-huh,
eh, for a certain meditation state,
millions.
millions of people.
Hmm.
And in the past, that was not easy to accomplish. I mean, there's a million children in what, Thailand or something who are meditating for peace right now.
Uh-huh.
Million children
Wow.
meditating for world peace. That's a coupled oscillator network. That's
Hmm.
cool. But if I wanted a million people sitting in a circle holding hands so I could splice my HRV in there, that's pretty hard to accomplish, but that's not necessary. You can do it here through the internet. If I have everybody listening right now put headphones on and I play a soundtrack with brain entrainment, I will entrain everybody's brainwaves to exactly and precisely the same brain state and be synchronized in the hemispheres at the same time, which is where you have to go for eurekas and epiphanies and opening higher doors and dimensions. We can do that right now.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
that's
Yeah.
that's your generic thing. And if you pushed it to another level where everybody could have an app on their phone with sensors in their app, we could do the biotuning thing on a million people and find the exact frequency that collapses that for.
Right. Interesting. So yeah, we've got probably around 8,000 people checking this out.
So
So
if everybody's got headphones, even if you don't have headphones, we can do it right now for a few minutes.
okay, cool. That'd be a good way to end.
I've got a piece that lasts for 3 minutes. And the entrainment is the default mode network, the most cutting edge thing in neuroscience right now. 4 zones in the brain that represents the default mode function of the brain. 95% of all brain function is this default mode. And when you can hyper synchronize those 4 zones, research has shown that that is associated with some of the highest states of meditation that have ever been measured. Cosmic consciousness and
Nice.
high states of transcendental meditation, things like that. Because this zone is my sense of self on the inside of my skin. This zone back here is my sense of self on the outside of my skin. When you synchronize those up, I get my normal sense. These 2 zones on the sides are a sense of time. Past to the present, present anticipation to the future. You synchronize those up, I get my normal sense of the present. But if you start to hyper synchronize those up with binaural beats, the borderlines become indistinct. Pretty soon it appears as if the inside of my body is universally large, or the present begins to expand into all past and future events, right? That's what I mean by cosmic consciousness, expansion
Cool.
of consciousness.
Cool.
Anyway, 3 minutes.
Okay.
Ready?
You have to share your screen first at all, or share your sound.
Oh, let me see. Through OBS, I should not have to do that.
Okay, cool.
But let me see. So tell me what to do if that's true. If I want to make a
No,
story.
I think your system, OBS, you've got it down. Just click over and play it. I think it'll work.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I got to find it first. Hang on. Here it is.
Cool. Nice. Cool.
So, always a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah.
Wish we were closer. But
Well,
that's a project on the shelf. We have to develop a electrostatic turnstile that when you step through it, you're anywhere immediately.
Yeah. It's really
Anyway,
cool. You know, it's interesting if we talk about emotion, getting rid of emotions, but if you just get people into a state of oneness or unity consciousness, there's no anxiety, right?
yeah.
There's no depression. I mean, everything starts resolving. So it's like, and now that's measurable. Unity consciousness is actually measurable as a brainwave state.
Yes. That's that's what I love about the sort of the new levels of technology that we have to use now. Electronic keyboards, that one you've got there, you can tune between, any two notes by 100 steps with a digital readout.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scientific instrument for sound generation. It's cleverly disguised as a rock and roll keyboard. I mean, it's a scientific instrument, you know,
Cool.
and
Cool.
we can hook you up to an EEG machine and watch how it's affecting you. We
Right.
can hook you up to heart rate variability, a squid device, an fMRI machine. I mean, it's mind blowing what is
Yeah.
capable now, and we should be on it
Yeah,
in
with
space.
all these devices, I mean, we should be testing all music, right? And
Yeah,
that people think are good for depression, all music that's for anxiety, with these devices hooked up, and then we could come up with precisely, okay, maybe this culture or this type of person, is going to need any of these 20 songs. You choose which one you like, the best. But we now know this musical flow, this combination of musical parameters is the best for that issue. And that's where we're headed, right?
we need multiple world class research centers to be researching this kind of stuff
Hmm.
with the kind of technologies that only the medical industry gets to have,
Right.
because they control the purse strings of the research money and who gets the big fancy schmancy equipment. It should be here.
It's happening. It's happening. I see it coming even within maybe a month now that it's actually starting to happen. So let's hold that thought for the rest of our lives.
I'm holding that thought. Coming. No, it's coming. I mean, it's
Yeah.
coming in my world. I know it's coming in your world, and I know
Uh,
that if it's coming in my world and your world, it's elsewhere too. It's in
yeah.
Asia, it's in
And-
Europe, it's in Dubai, it's
right.
in Australia. We may not know who they are yet, but they're going to poke their head up above the clouds, and we're all going to start seeing each other. And these nodes that are arising need to align.
Yeah. Yeah. More and more billionaires and even trillionaires are totally waking up and realizing this is the way to the where the money should go to help as many people as possible. And it's
Yeah,
really happening. I see it happening big time, right?
yeah,
Cool.
me too. It's awesome.
Thank
Anyway,
you. Thank you so much for your
thank,
work, and it's always a pleasure connecting with you.
thanks for your efforts. I mean, you know me. I always say I have a hard time getting two people over for dinner. You pull this off, and then I tip my hat to you.